good to go.
Okay. All right. Let's try that again.
All right, terrific. All right, welcome to the May 18th, 2022 FSAC meeting. My name is David Harris. I'm the chair of the FSAC. We are now called to order. So why don't we go around and introduce ourselves and for the roll call. So why don't we start with Eric? Why don't we start with you?
All right. Well, thank you. My name is Eric Johnson. I am the program supervisor here in community recreation. Back after a couple-year hiatus. So, but back here working with field permits and community recreation, and excited to be back and excited to get this meeting. It's been, I think since the last one we had was March of 2020. So it's good to be back after 26 long months. So it's good to see a lot of you, and hopefully we continue fighting the good fight. So I'll turn it over to, I'll start with our city staff, and then we'll keep it on to our members. So I'll turn it over to my immediate supervisor, Micah Ackerson, and he'll go from there.
Good evening. Thanks for joining. Micah Ackerson, Principal Community Services Supervisor. Many of you know me because I was working with you guys when Marisa Bell was out, and we have Eric back, so I'm happy to hand fields back over to him. But yeah, good to have you guys here, and glad we're getting FSAC going again.
Okay, so now we'll kind of go off of the member list, which might be easier. So let's see here. Why don't we start? I think we'll go in order. So Daniel, do you want to go first since I see you right next to David on my screen? So.
Oh, sure. I'm Daniel Campbell, Santa Monica Pony Baseball Fields Director. Hi, everybody.
Okay, now we'll go with AYSO.
Hi, John Tuttle, AYSO. Good to see everybody after a long little break.
And then we'll go with our Rec and Parks Commissioner Liaison, and the godmother of field sports, we still like to call her. So we'll turn it over to her. So.
The historian of field sports in Santa Monica, Marianne LaGuardia, Santa Monica Recreation and Parks Commission. Eric, welcome back.
Thank you. We'll turn it over to next. We'll go to Dragons Lacrosse.
Hey, how you doing? Randy Grube, Dragons Lacrosse. We teach K through 12 boys and girls lacrosse. Good to be back.
So as I see more people logging in, I'll go in my order. Crossroads School. You hear me? I see Ira Smith, the athletic director, on. Maybe he's still getting zoned in, but we do have Ira Smith here, the athletic director. Oh, there you go, Ira.
You hear me? I'll see myself. How's it going? Ira, athletics director from Crossroads.
Okay, we'll go with New Roads.
Hi, Steve Stokes, athletic director at New Roads.
Let's see if we have. I don't see Pacific Coast SC here or Pacifica Christian here right now. Yes, I do. Pacifica Christian.
I can double dip Eric for Pacifica, and excited to be back, and also for Santa Monica Little League. I'm Michael Balsley. I'm the president, and I'm the associate head of school over at Pacifica too. I'm not wearing a hat. Sorry about that.
We'll turn it over to Santa Monica Girls Fast Pitch.
This is Alan Jerkins here with Santa Monica Girls Fast Pitch, handle field permits for them.
We already did Santa Monica Little League and Michael. I don't have any district here just yet. So I know Brian Part, who is their facility use department supervisor, is on vacation. So possibly Carrie Upton or Robert White will represent for them. So we'll to see on that. Dan, you already did Santa Monica Pony League. Santa Monica Rugby Club. Stephen, you're on mute.
Yeah, Stephen Johnson, Santa Monica Rugby Club. We're U8 to U18 women and adult rugby.
I don't know if I see Shannon from Santa Monica Vikings lacrosse here yet, so she's not here yet for the Vikings. And then we have St. Monica High School.
Hey everyone, Jason Bowers with St. Monica.
And I think that's our roll call here. We do have some presenters who will be presenting, which will get an opportunity to introduce themselves when we get to those discussion or action items. So, David, I know, then I'll turn it back over to you. I just wanted to help with the roll call. Sorry, David. And then we'll go to, I guess, did I forget anybody here? I'm going through here.
Eric, I'm filling in for Fed for Santa Monica.
That's right, Santa Monica Surf. Sorry, Alan. So he'll be doing
board
both.
member on Surf, although Fed's the main guy. I just wanted to make sure.
Thank you very much, Alan, for jumping in on that. I appreciate it.
You got it.
And then we'll turn it over to David to go into public input. So.
Terrific. Again, I want to extend a warm welcome to everybody. And I know it's been a very long time since we had one of these meetings, so I'm very glad to get it back going. So any public input?
Yeah, actually, we do have one recorded public input, and we have James Macris, who reached out to me the other day to speak about a few different things. So James, I don't know if you're on the call. So you have anywhere from roughly 2 to 3 minutes for public input, public comment. So.
Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay, good. I wasn't sure about the whole making yourself a presenter. My name is Jim Macris. I'm the founder of an organization called Compete Forever. I'm formerly a varsity football coach at both St. Monica and Santa Monica High School. We started Compete Forever about 4 years ago, seeing the need for quality football training in the community. A lot of kids were leaving, going as far as Orange County and Chino for that type of training. So we started off doing some free camps around the community. Once COVID hit and many of the activities weren't taking place, leagues, etc., we started to provide flag football leagues for middle school athletes. Last fall, we served about 150 middle school boys and girls in the after-school flag football program. And we now are launching tackle football. Tackle football was a staple in Santa Monica for over 20 years, actually fielding 2 separate organizations. Both of those organizations are now defunct, so we're trying to bring back something that was a fabric of the community and trying to do that in the safest and most responsible fields. Adams Middle School, which has a football field, Lincoln Middle School, which has a football field, Santa Monica as well. So since starting to activate this program, we know that, or we've heard about being part of this committee or giving a voice at this committee. And obviously, this is the first time that this is taking place in quite some time. So wanted to introduce ourselves as an organization and then take all the necessary steps to be a recognized organization and have a voice for the families and the young athletes that choose to play football in its various capacities.
Great. Thank you and welcome. Just out of curiosity, how many participants did you have last year?
In our fall flag football program, I believe we had 150 5th through 8th graders just in the league itself. But we do a variety of training programs that draw kids. Currently, we're doing a program that draws as young as 2nd grade, and those aren't necessarily the same kids, same families. We do also train and run travel club type teams for high school athletes as well. So the breadth of all of the families that we serve is more around the range of 500 when you go down to the 2nd grade all the way through high school football players. And we do draw many athletes that their families have no intent of playing football or tackle football, but they like to come to us for the different performance, speed training, strength and conditioning things that we offer. And we're welcome to all athletes, all ability levels, etc. So, and that really was a shift prior to COVID when the CREST program really covered off football in the middle schools and elementaries. We were looking to be something that was a more a competitive offering for the community. And when that went away, we kind of shifted and felt the need that we needed to be more open to anyone that wanted to participate. And that's really how we've operated going forward. So we do a variety of activities and everyone's welcome.
Terrific. Thank you so much for your input. Eric, was there any other public public input?
No, that is it. So James reached out to us. Thank you for showing up, James, and Jim. So I know I've known Jimmy for a while. So and I know he's interested in applying for membership, so we'll kind of get him going on to the next steps on potentially doing that. Then ultimately it'll be up to this council to approve or deny his request. So, but that will be doing the steps and process with the FSAC chair and vice chair to get the wheels moving on that, and then ultimately we'll figure that out once we meet, in the next meeting or two to figure out all that other stuff.
Terrific. All right, in which case, let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is new business. And we have our action items and public safety issues with Santa Monica Police Department.
So hi there, good evening. I'm Edgar Navarro. Thank you for inviting us to your meeting. I've been with the police department for over 20 years. I've been an NRO, neighborhood resource officer, for the last 3 years. I wasn't familiar with your council, but it's definitely something that if invited again, we wouldn't mind stopping by to give you information, getting information from you regarding anything with the parks. I did bring some staff from community affairs with me, and hopefully we can answer any questions you guys have, provide you some helpful information for the parks. So I'll start off with my partner, Danny Melendez. He's the B3 NRO, which is basically his area of the city. His responsibility is Memorial Park, and he can tell you a little bit about himself.
Hello, everyone. Danny Melendez. I've been with Santa Monica for just under 3 years, formerly California Highway Patrol man. Now in Santa Monica. I love it there. And thank you, like Edgar said, thank you for inviting us to this council meeting. We look forward to building a relationship with you all, and making sure that we're able to work hand in hand to solve some of the issues that you folks might be facing in the community. So I'll put my email up on this chat. I'm fairly new to Blue Jeans, but we'll put our information there. If you do have any questions, Eric has all my contact information. We worked fairly closely several years ago, and then back again when he was over at Virginia Park not that long ago. So thank you again for having us here.
And a little structure information as far as the police department. So in our community affairs office, we have 8 NROs. It's 2 NROs per area, and we have 4 areas, what we call beats in the city. So we cover all the different parks. And like I said, Danny is part of B3. His partner is Jessica Medina. There's also a B4. That's Aaron Alpert. And then we have a B1 with Stephen Hollowell and Carlos Madrid. So we as NROs tend to get out to all the parks, try to address any issues. Assisting us in the office, we have 2 civilian employees. They're called crime prevention coordinators. It's a Halima Barreto, which might be joining us a little bit later. I know she had another meeting that she was attending, so we might see her tonight. And there's also a Susie Lockwood. And again, they deal with crime stats, providing information, doing security assessments. I know Halima did a security assessment at Memorial Park, I'm going to say maybe a year, 2 years ago. So really helpful in office. But I also wanted to include in this meeting Ed Cardona. He's a supervisor for the PSOs. PSOs are civilian officers that do foot patrols throughout citywide, and they also prioritize parks. So he's on the meeting right now. I'll let him give a little introduction as far as who he is and what the PSOs do and how they saturate the parks. So go ahead, Ed.
Good evening. My name is Edward Cardona. I originally started in the parks about 13 years ago, but now I kind of worked my way up, and I'm one of the public service officer supervisors. We patrol downtown 3rd Street and the airport. So I do understand some of the concerns that you may have regarding the parks. So what we usually do, I work with Eric Johnson. We communicate every once in a while. But I know that the big times that you guys are concerned about the Little League is in the afternoons, Monday through Friday, and then kind of all day Saturday and Sunday. So we set up periodics where we do foot patrols, like my partner here, NRO Navarro said. So we do set up periodics during those times, check the restrooms, things like that. We schedule come in and out as we do have other areas for responsibility, but we definitely do cover those areas. So anything you guys want to pass on, maybe through Eric Johnson or even Navarro, willing to help out in the shape I can.
So that's everybody that came in with the police department. One of the first piece of advice that I'll give you, and then we'll get into questions, because it's really important, is a lot of times people will call in and say, hey, I didn't get the service that I wanted. Either I didn't get to meet with the officer, I didn't find out what the officer did, how they resolved the call. So a lot of that has to do with how you're reporting what's happening. So a lot of people will say, hey, I just called, gave him some brief information, disconnected, and then I didn't see an officer arrive for an hour, 2 hours. And we really emphasize and we really encourage people to give as much detail as possible. As I used to be a former supervisor in the dispatch center, and one of the things that people don't understand is we have to prioritize the calls as they come in. So obviously we're going to go to the more life-threatening calls first. And sometimes people are kind of hesitant to give us more of that detailed information, kind of their gut instinct on things happening, someone being violent or someone holding what could possibly be a weapon, different things that you as parents and coaches are seeing out there that they're not telling us. And because of that, the calls aren't being prioritized right, and it delays our response. So I always encourage that when you call, give as much detail as you can. Everything that you're seeing, especially things that are threatening, that are an issue, you want to mention. That way we have all of that up front so that we can give it the response that it requires. So that's just one tip to start the evening. Does anybody have any questions for us?
Daniel.
Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, I have a question. So on priority, like for example, in our apartment building was robbed, and this is just anecdotal, but one of our tenants followed the assailants, described the car, gave the license number. There was a 200-pound box bike on top of the vehicle, and there was no follow-up report. And the follow-up report I did get from 311 Santa Monica was about 4 months later. And so how do these get logged in, and where's the public access to see if there was any outcome on an event or situation?
So a couple of things that you can do. On a lot of that, there's always things where you can verify that we did everything we're supposed to. On something, when you said a robbery of a building, so I'm assuming that it's a burglary that happened. That's a felony. That's something that's supposed to be reported. There's supposed to be a report. And it's not just the officers go out there and maybe they don't apprehend the person. A report still has to be filed. And because with all the information you provided, that's all the information that we need to proceed with an investigation and to most likely apprehend suspects. If you're not sure if a report was completed, you can always call police dispatch and you can find out how the call was resolved. And they'll let you know, okay, a report was written. If that report was filed, then you can follow up with our investigations and you speak to the detective that's in charge of that case, and you find out, what the status of the case is, what they've done. Did they apprehend somebody? And they can give you all that information. All that's available to you from the line level officers or the supervisors themselves. So
Okay,
that
well,
should all be available to you.
okay,
And that's, of course,
in that regard, I called dispatch. They said I had to go to 311. I emailed the officers with no response, and I talked to one of your two community people that came out, and Jessica, and still didn't get a response.
So sorry, Edgar, I just want to, so I'm a little confused as to why they would ask you to use 311. So 311, it's one of the things that we wanted to mention today. So 311 is just like a service provider. It's not how you really, you wouldn't access the police department through 311 unless there was a service that was needed in terms of like maybe graffiti, bulky removal of items that have been dumped. But if you're trying to get a hold of the police department because there's a crime that's being committed, I think our city hasn't really put out information on how to use 311. So if there's a crime being committed, it would be 911. If there's a non-emergency, but it's a police matter, they would call the non-emergency number. So I don't know why dispatch would tell you to use 311. What you said you contacted Officer Medina, which is the right step.
I talked to her face to face.
Yeah, so that would be the way to go about getting your information. As to the report number, right? If you are the victim of that crime, then you would have been given a DR number, an incident number, which would allow you to track your report. It would, like Officer Navarro said, a detective would contact you. So it's just were you the victim of crime, Daniel?
I mean, well, several of the tenants were. They stole from the garage out of it's a 5-unit building, and one of the tenants saw it happening, followed the car, could identify the subjects, told them the make and model of the car, the license number, and like I said, there was a 150-pound, front box bike on top of the car. So, and when I went, as I was instructed to go to 311, that took me about 3 months to get a report back, and then it was just basically the information that we had given them with the license number blacked out, and I had to give them all of my identification to even request that.
So bringing this all the way back to field sports here, Officer Melendez, can you tell us what should we be telling our coaches and our parents if there is something that is going on at a practice or at a game? What's the best way to report that, and how should we follow up?
So this is what I'm glad you brought that question up. This is what Officer Navarro and I discussed, and I'm sure Officer Cardona would venture to say the same thing. Is one of the 311 requests we got and an email we got from Michael was someone possibly using drugs in one of the bathroom stalls. So obviously that's a crime in California. It's a misdemeanor crime. So I'll get into that in just a little bit. So if crime is happening, that's a 911 call, and describe the behavior, right? It's a safety matter, right? 1, the person can overdose, right? 2, they're using drugs. 3, there's kids around during that time, and they don't need to be exposed to that, nor does the public. And so what you want to do is you want to place the call, like Daniel said, give a good description, let us know when it's happening, and describe what you're seeing. Be as direct as you possibly can. If the person is utilizing a needle, if the person is foaming at the mouth, or you see the eyes rolling back, or they start their behavior changes, and you could see that they're aggressive, they're clenching their fists, they're swinging their arms around. Those are all the type of comments and details that you need to add to your call, because it elevates the priority of it, right? Now there is a public safety issue, right? This person might be losing control and might hurt somebody. And so the priority that's placed on the call is different. Oftentimes we see it in the public that they say, Well, looks like they're doing drugs, but they're not really doing anything. They're kind of just by themselves. And so, that's different. Okay, there's no one being harmed. Okay, unfortunately, right, in California, we've passed several laws that have, in essence, decriminalized drug use. So it's a misdemeanor. So when it's a misdemeanor, if an officer is not present when that crime is occurring, then the person who is calling in and has observed the crime occurring, we would need them to be present in order for us to be able to effect an arrest, because in essence what that witness needs to do is sign what we call a private person's arrest. Once you sign that private person's arrest, then we can effect that arrest on your behalf. Oftentimes we have people who call, but they don't want to be really involved in it. They want to say, well, I just wanted to let you know. Well, unfortunately, now if we don't see it happening in our presence, our hands are kind of tied. We try to look at other tools that we may have at our disposal to try to either remove this person from there or see what really is going on. And so that's where we're at. I'll go and tie in Daniel's experience, right? That was no longer a misdemeanor. A burglary, right, to a garage or a home is essentially a felony crime. And so we don't need a private person's arrest there. We just need to see what occurred, determine what happened then, and go from there. So we could effect that arrest. So what I would pass on to everybody is be very descriptive, right? Unfortunately, in Santa Monica, we do have a large homeless population. Being crazy, right? Having mental health issues, that's not a crime, all right? And so sometimes it's really tough because Memorial Park is a public place. We can't kick people out unless they're, breaking the rules and regulations or committing crimes. Other than that, we also have to be respectful of people who are unhoused. They also have rights. And so it's not easy to remove something that we don't want there when it comes to that. So we also have to balance, balance that as we go on. Edward or Edgar, if you want to add anything on.
Yeah, so I'll also mention this. So yes, like my partner was talking about, private person's arrest. When a crime does happen, it does require that. But I always emphasize to folks, you don't have to wait for a crime to happen before you call us. And this is a real important message for the coaches and the parents. If you're at a park and there's a game going on, let's assume that there's a homeless person and they haven't committed a crime, but maybe they're acting erratic. They're having a mental episode. They're taking up the bathroom. They haven't assaulted somebody, but maybe they're boxing with some invisible person in the restroom. You can always call us on those things so that we can get to an issue before it becomes bigger. And don't, a lot of people will say, well, it wasn't a crime, so I didn't want to take the police officer's time. That's the type of calls that we want to go to. It may end up that we talk to the person calms down, and then we create a safer situation. Maybe it means that instead of it being a legal enforcement, we do some type of mental hold. All those things are available to us, but at the end of the day, we want to make it safe for you, for the kids. So we want to be there before something does happen. Now, in terms of if you want to get validation on a call, short term, immediately, two things that I recommend. When you put a call in, the dispatcher is going to ask you, do you not want to contact? Which is really an important question for us because some people want to stay anonymous. They don't want to make contact with the police officer. So we really respect that. If you say that, we won't make contact with anybody, and because we want to respect that you want to stay anonymous. Or we give you the option of, if needed, or if you want contact, then you can ask for that, which means that once you put a call in, the officer responds out there, whatever actions he takes, he'll come and talk to you and he'll say, hey, this is what the person did. This is what the law allows me to do. And then you, as a reporting party, you can feel either, okay, I'm happy with what he did. I understand his limitations, or I really expect that he can do more, but maybe he's not. So that would be your second verification. There's field supervisors that are available. So let's assume you make a call, you really think the officer should have done more, then you can ask for a supervisor. They'll come out and then you can talk to them. They may verify what the officer says. They may say, hey, there's nothing he can do because of this and this and this, but at least you get that verification and you know right then, right there, as opposed to having to wait like Daniel, 3 months to find out that maybe everything that should have been done wasn't done. So those are some options for you right off the bat when you make those calls. Mr. Harris, any other things that happen in the field that would be better for law enforcement that I can answer questions on?
Sure. I guess I have two questions. One would be, this is a really great discussion about what to do when we see something that is a problem. I'd love to hear from you guys about what we're doing proactively to make sure that problems aren't going to happen. So what kind of policing are you doing proactively around the fields in the city?
And that's one of the reasons that I brought Ed Cardona. So he's a supervisor for the PSOs. They do the patrolling in the parks. So typically our parks, we're always asking for our patrol personnel, that's our sworn personnel, to walk the parks whenever they can. Now they stay busy, as you can imagine, handling radio calls, but whenever they can, they'll walk through the park, give out badges. That's the same case with our office, the NRO office. Whenever we can, we make checks in the park. One of the task forces that will do a lot of checks at the park is a help team. That's a good phone number to have. And if there's a way to add it to a chat line or something, I'm not familiar with Blue Jeans, but we'll see if we can add it. But the help team, which stands for the Homeless Liaison Program, their number is 310-458-8953. I'm going to say it's one of the best task forces that we have in the department. No offense to you, Danny. Your task force is phenomenal too. But they're really good in the sense of it's like about 8 officers, and all they focus on is homeless issues. So what ends up happening is residents, coaches, anybody in the city, they'll come across a homeless person that it's a recurring problem. Maybe they see him at the park, same time at the park, and they're always up to some type of erratic behavior. When you call that number, you can talk to the help team. They're always in the field, so you leave them a message and you'll say, hey, this person, this is what they look like, this is what they do. Maybe they're not committing a crime, but they seem mentally not safe. Is there anything we can do with them? So what's great about them is they'll come out and they'll provide services for them. So it's not just immediately we go into enforcement. We're looking to see what type of services, how can we help the person, mental health, maybe referring them to housing, food, clothing, all of that. So they're a really good task force for that. So they tend to check the parks, and their hours tend to vary. They start as early as 4 o'clock in the morning. So when you know of people who are camping out at parks, if you can get that to the help team, they can contact them early in the morning before they leave. So that would be a good call for us. So getting back to the PSOs, maybe Ed can talk about how often are they at the parks, how you assign PSOs to check the different parks. So on you, Ed.
Yes. So usually, since there's only a few of us throughout the evenings, what works best is usually we know when the parks are going to be the busiest or we have a special event. We set up what we call periodic checks throughout the evening. We have PSOs walk the park. For example, Memorial Park, we'll check periodics. For today, we'll say that we need to stop in there between 4 and 9 today. So the PSOs will stop it there in between and radio out and put themselves out there so so everybody knows that we're out doing a periodic check. But we stay as long as we seem needed. For example, today I walked the park myself. I walked through the parks, walked through the fields. I checked all the restrooms, make sure everything was okay. Then I checked out of there and moved on to the next assignment. So we do come in and out because we do have other responsibilities throughout the city. We schedule these checks on a daily basis, as well as me and the other supervisors on both sides of the week. So we should cover 7 days a week. But unfortunately, if there's a big event, something gets pulled away, we might not stop as often. Kind of reiterate what my partner said, calling the non-emergency PD department and painting a picture for the dispatcher also helps, because if it's something that we can handle and we're close by, we can stop in. So I hope that kind of fills in. If you have any more questions on that, but that's kind of how we usually deploy our personnel.
Yeah, we do have a question from Michael Balsley from Santa Monica Little League. Turn it over to him.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, and Officer Cardona, I've seen you at Memorial doing your rounds, so we appreciate that. But just speaking for Little League and Memorial, I'm just curious on the police force's take on just kind of a practical matter with homelessness, because what we tend to find at Memorial is that many displaced people will use the bathrooms and they'll use the water fountains in the mornings to basically just get kind of cleaned up. But sometimes they're also, they're carrying a lot of stuff with them. They've got a big bike with baskets and bags. We know that that's not a crime, but sometimes their presence alone makes it impossible for kids to go there by themselves. So I'm just curious about, what do you officers advise us to do? Because I think, Officer Edgar, you were saying, Officer Navarro, you were saying it's not a crime, and we want to know, but that tends to be almost a daily occurrence. And when it's kids, it's just a little different than, being down on Venice Beach. So it's something about the facilities. I'm hopefully we'll have some renovation at Memorial, and maybe there's more staffing, and I do think that helps over at Clover. There's more staff, but just curious what you feel about those public spaces, and what do we do about people who are just using it to get clean and camp out for a little while?
And I understand it's a challenging thing even for us, because the issue is this. I know if I had a family member who was homeless living in a park, that's not the life that I would want him to live. So I would want police to have the right to get him services and to get him out of the park. The law just does not allow for that. So at the end of the day, when the park is open, I believe it's 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. So anybody is allowed to be in that park during that time. So just as a resident who lives across the street will set up a blanket and take a nap on the grass, that's just as legal as, say, an unhoused person sets up the same thing on the park and takes a nap in the park throughout the day. Same thing. So, and I can tell you, my area of responsibility is B2, which is kind of the Sunset Park area. So one of the things that we started doing is we knew that we were limited as far as our ability to take enforcement. So we went out there and we kind of took off our police hat and put on our social worker hat. And that's what we did at Clover. And I'm not sure if some of you have noticed some improvement at Clover and a little bit at Virginia Park, but we really went out to each and every homeless person and we were saying, hey, I know you're okay to be here, but what is it? Why are you here? What is it that we can do for you? So on and so forth. So we were able to move some of those people out of the park voluntarily, where they went and got services. We connected them to help. So that's kind of where the police department is at. Yes, we would love to be able to kind of compel the unhoused folks to take on the services, but we can't do that. So in the meantime, like for Memorial Park, I played Little League Baseball at Memorial Park when I was a kid. And the truth of the matter is I do remember being a kid and remember being intimidated to go to the restrooms when I saw a homeless person out there. So I can understand that. So I think some of the advice will be reach out to us in the help team when you see the same people over and over, because that way the help team, the NROs, the PSOs can reach out to those folks and see if we can get them the services so that they can voluntarily leave the park. Ed, question for you for recurring homeless or recurring issues. Are they allowed to send you an email? That way maybe you can designate PSOs depending on the issues going on?
Yes, pictures are great, but I would say use caution. But sometimes if you cannot get a picture of the best description you can bring out, like I said, bring a picture for us. It's a male, it's a female, the race, what they're wearing. They have a lot of belongings. Do they have a bicycle? Things like that really help our PSOs kind of narrow it down, because most likely we're already going to be familiar with the person. And what usually happens, we try to do our part with that individual, do some outreach with them. When our efforts don't work, we kind of kick it up to the help team where they can kind of see, maybe we can bring a clinician and see maybe they can work on that person a little more and kind of see where they can direct them to the best services they may need. So best description via email or picture if you can, but paint the picture for me, and that really helps because we'll be familiar with that person.
Can I add something real quick? I think it would be helpful that I think maybe I could work with Edgar, Danny, and Ed, and maybe we can create some type of cheat sheet that we can share with the organizations as far as contact numbers and maybe some emails, so that way they can share with their other constituents or the other coaches in their organization, so that way it's an easier access sheet and a kind of how-to-do list. So when they're faced with these situations, it might be easier for the entire group to have that on hand, and maybe we can work on compiling something. I'm not sure if that's something that's possible or if this group is interested in, and maybe we can make that happen. So.
Yeah, Eric, that's 100%. Yeah, we can get you those contact numbers and get you some just different tips on how they call and what they should say and all that. Because that, I think if that's helpful for you guys, we just want the information at the end of the day, and getting that good information, say, to the help team, to the people who have the services, to be able to get these people out of the park for their own benefit. So for sure, we'll get that to you.
And just real quick, just that internal database we already have, and like Officer Cardona said, that picture, when it comes across us, several of the officers will know who we're referring to, and a lot of us have built some type of relationship with some of the unhoused individuals. So it takes a while. I mean, the last project we had took us about, can you even remember, Eric, the Moulton and her son over at Virginia Park? I want to venture to say maybe a year and a half. Finally, we got them out of the park into housing. So, I mean, just so that you know the type of sometimes frustration and the amount of time and effort that it takes to finally get someone to realize that they need services. Oftentimes, they decline the services. Memorial Park is actually fairly close to one of the C3, it's called, which is a homeless resource that our city has, and they're just I think they're just south 14th and Olympic, so they're fairly close to the park. So you can probably venture to guess that a lot of the clients end up going to the park because it's so close to where they receive some of their services.
I have one other comment just mainly about Memorial Park, but I think part of the issue, and Little League can speak about this, but also just other park users, is access to the restrooms. Not necessarily that they're maybe doing something illegal. I mean, likely that they are, but just that they're staying in the restroom for hours on end. I mean, you can go out there at 2 p.m. and come back at 4 p.m. and the same bike is sitting in there. Is there anything about a time limit that can be enforced or that our staff at Memorial can do? Because that's part of the problem, is just these kids have nowhere to go to the bathroom because all the bathrooms are being used by the homeless.
I'm glad you brought that up. So we have a municipal code, which allows us to kind of enforce that in essence, right? I mean, there's ways around the application of that. And if you are a city representative and you are trying to, just either clean the restroom or make sure that there's toilet paper or whatever necessities need to be in there, and you can't get in, then they're kind of impeding with your job. And so if you contact us, we can utilize that municipal code to actually kind of tell the person, like, hey, you need to hurry it up. They need to service this restroom for whatever means, and you got to speed it up. And if they continue to defy that, then we can actually do some enforcement. So if you can also, that would be a perfect call, right, to the non-emergency number. Hey, this person, we know they're in there. They've been in there for X number of hours or minutes. We have a Little League game going on. The kids need to use it. We're trying to service it to maintain it clean, and the person's just not coming out.
Thank you.
All right. I think it's in the interest of I know our SMPD's time. I think hopefully we can make this maybe a quarterly thing or a recurring thing for our future meetings, just to kind of do that. That'd be great. And and I think I'll try to compile all the access and numbers you left, Danny. I'll try to do that and maybe put it in a little PDF or something that could be a little carryable for our group, so they can share that with their members, just so they have, like, I know the data is important for you guys, and maybe that's something we can work towards and updating annually. So I'm not sure, Michael, it looked like you had something else to add last one.
I just wanted to ask Eric and the officers, is there any value to just having more signage around? Can Little League support that? Just have access to the non-emergency numbers, the support numbers? Because I know over the years we've seen the signs there, and they sort of come and go, so I don't know if they're being taken down, but we'd be happy to help in that way.
Yeah, signs are always great. We appreciate signs. We can give you all the business cards we have. That way, maybe we can meet up. You and I can meet up at some point in person. I can give you, a stack of my business cards, and everybody's in the office that will work. Additionally, I can give Eric that information. He can send it to you with a digital copy. I think I will be honest with you. The signs are great. We've been trying to work on a sign for the 1550 lot over by the pier. One sign. It's taken us about a year and a half because there's only one person in the entire city that is responsible for signage. And I know, Eric, I see you smiling over there because we had this conversation. So yeah, I mean, I think we're all for signage. But if you can help us out with that, that'd be great.
And I'll just mention one last thing. And for the coaches, let your parents know that the more people call, the better. So let's assume you have a game going on, you have a problem person. It's going to increase the priority if you have 5 parents calling about the same guy. It's going to get personnel there faster. So definitely encourage your parents to call when they see something. And and last thing is, like Eric says, we have no problem stopping by quarterly and hearing about these things and being able to share with you guys other stuff going on in the park. So again, thanks for the invite, and then we'll stop by again. Anybody wants to reach out to us, our contact information is out there, so please feel free to get a hold of us.
Again,
Eric, can I add something? Can I add something quickly? Hi, my name is Shannon Perry. I'm here with my FSAC hat on, but if I take it off quickly and put my city employee hat on, I wanted to let you know that I have a sign guy, and if you have trouble getting your sign produced or installed, I've had a lot of luck with it, so you're welcome. I'm at extension 2227, and I am happy to help you get that sign up.
Well, terrific.
Thank you very much. We're going to be calling you.
Did you write that down, Danny, real quick?
I did.
Good deal. Hey, so we need to continue to move on with our agenda, but we want to just thank all of you from SMPD for coming out. We really appreciate you being here today and for everything you do to make our fields and our kids safe. So we really do appreciate it. We look forward to having you at future meetings. But let's go ahead and keep moving on because we do have a full agenda today. So thank you again to SMPD. So the next item on our agenda would be 2B, which is we are now looking for new council chairs and vice chairs. Those positions are going to be coming open. So it's been a while since we've had meetings. We've had some turnover. So now that I am the chair, we're going to be looking for a new chair. So to that end, our hope is to have elections at the next meeting. And so what we're really looking for is people who are interested in submitting their name and putting them on the, putting it out there to possibly be elected. So Eric, what would be the best way for people who are interested in serving?
Perfect segue, David. Like I said, the reason this is an action item because we do need to make the action that we're going to move forward with chair and vice chair positions. We can't just appoint and all that. We do need to follow the Brown Act in regards to that. So the best thing to do, I would say, would be to email myself and also David for the time being in regards to if you're interested in running for those positions. Obviously, our next meeting will probably be, hopefully have it sooner rather than later in person. So that way we can do that and we can create this as an action item if someone it's forward against it, so that way we can move it forward and we can agendize it for the next one, for the next meeting that we will appoint a chair and vice chair at our next meeting. So if that makes sense, this is the whole point that this is on there because we need to do the due process to be able to get this process moving. So if someone wants to go through with that, then we can do that and they can email that and I can send an email out to everybody, to all the membership who are interested, and then we can kind of go it that way. That would be my recommendation.
Sounds good. Do we need a motion to open that, or are we good?
I think we would need a motion, then you need a second, so that way we can. The motion would be to go through with a nomination and appointing of chair and vice chair at our next meeting. So that would be the motion, and then someone would need to second that, so that way we can agendize that for our next meeting, if that makes sense.
So moved.
So we just need someone to nominate it. So here we go.
Okay, so we have a motion from Shannon, and do we have a second from Michael? Any discussion?
Is that an appointment or election?
That would be an election. We'll be voting.
And that the question is if you wanted to nominate someone or self-nominate, you email Eric,
myself, and David. Correct. That is correct.
Do we have David's email address?
I will include that. I will include that on the thread that when we send out the email about nominations.
Cool.
Any other discussion? Okay, no other discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Randy, are you opposed? Okay, I'm assuming that was a delayed reaction then. So the motion carries, and we will we'll proceed accordingly. Okay, so the next action item is impact of field closures.
David, I'd like to recommend this to be. This will be combined with city staff update, if that's okay with you. be able to do that because we do have representatives from Public Landscape. So we would just like to group this all in a city staff update, and it will cover the topic of all that as well during that as well.
All right, let's do that. Then let's move into our third item, which is discussion items, and we have city staff updates.
Well, I'll start off with that, then I'll segue it into Matthew Wells in regards to that. So, well, first of all, it's great to see all of you. City staff update in regards to that, and I'll turn over to Micah as well too. It's great to see you. It's been a long 26 months since we've met. Few different things. Obviously, we do. Just to kind of give an update, we are right now just for field permits. You kind of go through me. Same thing. Email. You can email sports and myself. Either way, like I said, I'll be working all over the place, so I access it from my phone or through laptop or everything else. So it is a rather lengthy process to get my city cell phone activated. It's been roughly 2 months now. So once that becomes live, and you can stop calling me on my personal phone, and I'll share the city cell phone with all of you. I know a lot of you text or call Micah, so stop doing that. So you can call me. I can be able to handle all that information. So I know a lot of you are still using the old city cell phone number that is no longer active. So once we get that out there, just kind of reach me as far as any other things in regards to issues or anything else, and I can try to be on the forefront of that and try to be able to report any issues to either our counterparts at landscape or to our counterparts with electrical or anything like that, or even facility maintenance or anything that's going on. If you see something, or even I can communicate with the SMPD in regards to that. If you're not comfortable doing that, I can be the liaison like I've had before in the past. So I'm just trying to be the advocate for you guys and try to give you guys all the tools that you can to be successful. Quick update, spring session is coming to an end. You will be getting your spring invoices probably in the coming weeks, and also your summer allocations will be coming at the end of this week, if not latest early next week. So we should be able to accommodate most of the requests. I think most of our groups that requested summer camp stuff, we did approve, and you already should have received that. But we'll be going through with the other stuff. We're just slotting in times. And also, if any of your organizations are doing all-stars or hosting tournaments or anything like that, please let us know so we can communicate with our counterparts in landscapes, so they're aware of it, so they can schedule their maintenance accordingly, so they can help the needs of either Little League, Fast Pitch, Pony, or even some of our high schools that are still utilizing stuff for their programs as well too. So just keep us informed, and that way we can kind of communicate all of that information to them as well. So that's all I have. Good to be back, and hopefully we can continue to meet in person and be able to, when things get better, and then hopefully we can continue to go forward with a lot of the things that we're doing. So good to see everybody. I'll turn it over to Micah. Do you have anything to add? Or
I'll be very, very short. Many of you knew Brad Albert, so he had sat on this committee. He's no longer with the city, so I'm going to be kind of filling in on his role. I'll try not to talk as much as Brad did. But anyways, like Eric said, you can text him for issues, but if you guys have my number, feel free to reach out to me. And there's a light issue, Eric and I will race to see who can get the lights on. But anyways, going to turn it over to Matthew Wells. Matthew Wells is the Public Landscape Manager. Really happy to have him here tonight, and I think he's going to have a lot of information for you guys that's going to be really important for all of you. Over to you,
Great. Yeah, thank you very much. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay. And thank you, Eric, as well. It's good to have you back. I know some of the faces, not everyone. And today, I don't feel closures is maybe a little bit dramatic. Hopefully we won't get to that. But I do want to talk about really just where we are in park maintenance. So as the Public Landscape Manager, about 50% of my operation is park maintenance. And due to COVID, we took a bit of a hit, like many of the city departments, with resources. And again, this isn't hopefully, I'm not here to have a moan fest about how little I now have. I just want to be very honest about the situation that we're currently in. And unfortunately, though, the city is bouncing back. That doesn't necessarily mean that all the resources magically reappear for the various departments. I was hoping that would happen, but we're finding out now that really we're having to fight with all the other divisions and departments to get these restorations back. And it's not necessarily going to be easy. And I think that in many cases, we might never see those full returns to the resources that we had available to us before COVID hit. So just to quickly touch on what we lost due to COVID. Many of you might have worked with or spoke to our supervisor, one of our very good supervisor we had called Tom Giello. He was really the supervisor that oversaw all our field restorations and had all the parks with the sports fields in. Tom, retired, which was great for him, but bad for us because we lost a huge amount of skilled and experience in field restoration. So we lost that. So, and that position has not been replaced. So we used to have one supervisor very much geared towards field restorations or field maintenance and just looking after our sports field parks. We no longer have that position. So we have three supervisors left, but they are obviously all doing 33% more. In terms of our crew leaders, we used to have 5 crew leaders. We now have 2. So we really had 4, I want to say, that was focused on park maintenance. So we're about, both the 2 remaining crew leaders, they're very good, but they're both having to do 100% more than they did before. The other thing that happened to us is we lost a lot of contract dollars, which means that the groundskeepers that we have working in our parks, we didn't really lose any groundskeepers, but the groundskeepers that we have had to take on 11 additional contracts, park sites. So these sites used to be maintained by contractors and now being maintained by our groundskeepers, which means that each one of our groundskeepers is now covering much more ground than they were before, which obviously means that the quality that they can provide in those various park locations does unfortunately suffer. And then when you couple in on top of that a lack of direct supervision because we don't have as many crew leaders or supervisors, then you can see that we are, in certain places, it's tough for us to keep up with it, which is a problem for us. The other thing that's happening, which the police department and the PSOs have already been here talking about, is that we have more challenges than perhaps we've had before. We have lots of more visitors in our parks in terms of homeless visitors living in our parks, which creates a lot more additional trash for us. A lot of broken glass. A lot of our groundskeepers, first things in the morning, they are focused on trying to clean up after people sleeping in the bushes, leaving bedding all over the place, removing needles and so on and so forth. And then not so much really in the parks with our sports fields, but we do have our vendors, our groundskeepers fighting with the vendors, or not fighting, but trying to keep the vendors into certain areas and clean up after them as well. Unfortunately, they do dump a lot of trash into our park trash cans and generally create a lot of work that we never had before. We had this sort of influx of vendors into Santa Monica. So with that all said, as part of the exception-based budget process, which is happening right now, and City Council has a study session next Tuesday to discuss the exception-based budget. We had actually put forward that because we actually have less resources, we're struggling to do as many field restorations as we've historically done. This last year, we were able to find some money. What was CCS, which is now Community Recreation, they found some money as well. But it was just a Band-Aid. For that year, we just found some money that we could basically use to fund a contractor to maintain some of our parks, which freed up our groundskeepers to focus on field restorations. And you would know that probably the main field that we restored was Clover Main, the one that currently has a fence around it, but also we did a lot of work down at Marine. But we were only able to do that because we found some additional money that we could use for freeing up our groundskeepers. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to carry that on. So we put in an additional $85,000 this year to be added to our park maintenance budget, so we could essentially do the same thing. That request is unfortunately not being approved or is not moving forward. There's a lot of people requesting money for lots of different reasons, and the city, like I said, is not completely out of the fiscal crisis it's been in. So it's a real fight to get additional resources. But that means that 85 grand that we were going to use to move sites over to the contractor so we could free up groundskeepers to do field restoration work. And the work that we were going to do this year was we were going to focus on the extension at Clover Park, which I'm sure many of you know that has taken a real beating during COVID. It's been very heavily used. We're going to do more work more work at Los Amigos. And one of the main things another thing we were going to do is the Memorial Main Field. We're on our agenda to do restorations at this year. So that's what we were hoping for. That we didn't get that money. It's not a complete disaster, we are looking at ways to try and mitigate that loss and seeing if we can find the money in other places. So we've come up with a way to at least get half of that money. We're actually not going to, Douglas Pond is something that we spend quite a bit of money on cleaning every year. So we've decided that we won't clean it this year. That will give us quite a bit of money towards doing that we need to do field restorations. But we're still about $40,000 short. So what we're hoping for from this meeting is that maybe FSAC members can maybe reach out to City Council or communicate with City Council or send them emails, because though we didn't get the money this year, we'll obviously try again next year. But this, we were hoping to get 85K returned to us, so field restorations would be just something that we could return to our regular cycle. Right now, we're not going to clean the pond. We can do that for 1 year, but next year we're going to have to start cleaning the pond again. So at the moment, we're ducking and diving a little bit to find additional resources, so we can do some field restoration work. Currently with that work, we think that we can do at least something at the Clover extension, and also some work at Memorial as well, and maybe a little bit at Los Amigos, but it's not as much work as we would want. So our ask would really be is long term, so we can kind of get back to kind of a little bit more to where we were pre-COVID, is that we would like to, get at least one crew leader back. I'm not asking for 2 crew leaders or a supervisor, but at least, one crew leader would be very useful, because to help us with supervision of our groundskeepers in the field, and at least a return of $80,000 into our budget, so we can use that again to use the contractor to maintain park sites. We can focus our groundskeepers on working on the field restorations. And that was what I wanted to say. I mean, if we don't get that money, long term, we will always have to close fields if they become dangerous, and that's not a decision that we'll make lightly, or a decision that we'll make to try and make a political statement. We'll obviously work with Micah and Eric, and that will be our very last resource to actually have to close fields and essentially allow them to rest and hopefully come back and do some minimal restoration work to try and get them back out of being, back to a playable surface that's safe, obviously, for users. And that's kind of what I wanted to say. I do have 2 other little updates, and then I can take any questions. We will be, for many of you who play at Memorial, you'll notice that some of the boarding, some of the sheets are coming off some of the buildings, and some of those are over the batting cage and also over the dog run. So from a safety point of view, we're going to be doing some work in June to either replace those boards or to nail down the loose ones. So that will be going ahead. And also our stadium lights contract has finally been approved. I know Daniel will be very happy to hear this. And I believe there's a chance that the lights at Memorial will be replaced this week. And at Jams, we're trying to coordinate with the school and with the contractor, and we're hoping to get that done within 2 weeks at the very latest. So that's kind of an update from me. Sorry, it's not great news. I don't think it's terrible news, but we would very much appreciate this group supporting us in our sort of quest to get some of our resources returned. So in the long term, and maybe in this right now, we can make do without it, but in the years coming up, we really do need some of those resources back, so we can try and get back to where we were pre-COVID and provide the very best fields we can to our sports groups. So thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me today as well.
Matthew, I believe Mary Ann has a question for you.
All right, Matthew, assuming that you do not get any more money for field maintenance, won't that leave the fields in a condition where they're going to be more expensive to restore in the future?
Yes, I mean, obviously, probably, right? We might have to then make the fence at Clover Main permanent, which would be very costly as well. But yeah, obviously, the worse the condition the fields get into, obviously, the more work you have to do to them to keep them up. Yes, I think that's a great point, and that's one of the reasons we're concerned about the extension at Clover, which is really taking a hammering with with cleats and soccer and so on and so forth.
Recreation and Parks Commission is very concerned about this particular issue, and we are going to be urging the City Council to fill in what you need on that $85,000 that was cut. Being a veteran of many of these wars, I can tell you that letters to City Council help, And if you point out that it's going to be more expensive in the future to defer field maintenance, that may be just something that catches someone's interest.
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm not fully sure that we put that in our budget request, but we certainly will for future ones. And I'm speaking at RPC tomorrow, so Rec and Parks Commission. I'll be there tomorrow night.
I know you are. And isn't it a risk management issue too? I mean, some of those fields really get chewed up, and we get the calls on broken ankles and broken legs and whatnot.
Yeah, obviously we never want to see anyone getting injured, and that's why I work with like Micah and Eric on that. And that's we don't want to have to shut our fields because they become unsafe. But I want to make sure that people realize that I don't want to also do that as a political stunt, and
right.
Obviously take away playing space from children as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just before we go on to more questions, I just want to point out we are at the 15-minute warning, so we have 15 more minutes. So I would urge people to keep their questions brief so we can continue through the agenda.
Okay, let's go with John, then Dan.
Yeah, a quick question for you on Clover Park, Maine. The fence has been up for quite some time, and coming out, basically going through, it was a good time to do it during COVID. Everyone's numbers were low. But this next year, I know coming back and the numbers I see coming in, we're going to be back pretty much at full status pre-pandemic going into this next fall season. And the Clover, Maine was a huge part of our whole organization. We had 3 fields up there. We ran a 5v5 tournament, a big fundraiser. What is the status of that fence coming down?
The status was, if we were able to, we had more funds available to us for doing more restoration work. Operationally, we would like to keep the fence up, but in the reality we've had a lot of people that want the fence to come down because they want to use that area, or maybe make the fence area much smaller, so it's just more around the area that's used for baseball. But I think our hope is that once we start to get some of those resources back, is that we can open that field back up. It's not just park maintenance. It's also the fact of like PSOs enforcing people not wearing cleats and stuff like that. These other groups that are turning up, like misuse of the fields as well. Because we have far fewer officers. And we don't have the field monitors as well. We used to have the field monitors with CCS as well. Then, that's sort of like contributing to some of the misuse. So, now the gyms and everything else is open. So, we're just very concerned because we got that field into a really good condition, a really good place. So we just don't want to, open it up to be a free for all and then for it to get damaged again. But we understand, there's a push to open it. And again, we'll work with Micah and Eric on that. And now, with this group, and listen to you guys as well on what we think we can do.
Yeah, because this is kind of unprecedented. I mean, it's always been this way. We've always been able to make it work. And the field has always been nice for us when it was needed, but as it is right now, it's like kids walking their parents around going, "Oh, look, mommy, it's grass. It's that stuff we used to be able to play on." Yeah. It's like nobody's able to even go out there. It doesn't make any sense. The only one who's utilizing it is Crossroads, New Roads, and maybe Little League that gets to go out and play baseball. Right. As soccer, we're utilizing that one small area around the back for some practicing, and that's about it. But when it comes season time, we need game space. We need fields.
Yeah, and we can certainly at least make the fence line, bring the fence line in at the back, because I know we've pushed it right to the back, whereas we can at least pull it up to free up some of that space. Mike has already mentioned that to me, and that's something we can definitely look at. And I think someone actually the other day got so frustrated they cut a huge hole in the fence, and at the weekend. So it is something that we're concerned about. And again, right now, without those additional resources, we could just open it up and just see what happens, but we're concerned we wouldn't have the resources to restore it back to that really good condition it's in currently.
Yeah, because I've been out there, and the adults. Obviously, this is we know what the biggest culprit out there is. The adults that come and play, the bigger adults. They really put their cleats on, and they definitely dig into the dirt, but they're still going out there. you know, they crawl right underneath the fence. Some of them go
Yeah.
over it, but most of them go under it. You know, it's an issue, and I know it's going to become a larger issue come, you know, this next fall. So hopefully we can get that fence down.
Yeah, we don't obviously want to fence off public space. You know, that's not our intention. We're just trying to balance the two at the moment. But hopefully, like I said, and I know we're running out of time, but we can get a good balance where people can have access to that space, and still the field is in really good condition.
I think Dan had the next question, then we'll go with Shannon.
Yeah, just real quick, Matthew. First, thanks for all the work that did get done from your crews and everything. I know, you know, our community certainly appreciate it, and thanks for working with us on all the issues. You know, it's really great to have that ability to talk to everyone at city staff. I just wanted to say real quickly, so you said restoration was at Clover and Marine last year, also Memorial 5 and 6. Was that restoration, or is that just their yearly recondition?
I want to say that was a yearly recondition, but I can email you, Dan. I can ask. I'm not like, you know, I'd have to check with my supervisor and my administrator to get you the exact correct answer on that.
Okay, thanks.
And then, is it Shannon?
Shannon, yeah.
Hey, Matthew. I had a question. I think I heard you say that it would be helpful for us to connect with council on this item because you do have a budget shortfall. So from a process perspective, I think there's two routes that we should go here, right? And Eric, Micah, you can help me with this. It sounds like the FSAC, if we so wish, could make a motion to Rec and Park, right? Because we're advisory to Rec and Park. So we think of a recommendation to them stating our intention or our desire or recommendation that they advocate to council to fully fund the, Matthew, help me with the exact language here, but that they fully fund the staff and physical resources necessary to maintain the field space such that we maintain a safe and supportive environment for recreational use of our fields in Santa Monica. Am I close?
Shannon, you are one of the best at doing those sort of things, so I'm not going to mess with you on that. But yes, I think that would be very good. Yeah.
Okay.
Shannon, can that get done by tomorrow night?
Yeah, we're gonna do it right now.
Because we're gonna deal with this at our meeting, so.
Yeah, we're gonna do it right now. So we're gonna do this. I'm gonna make that motion, and then I'll write it up and send it to Eric or Micah. You guys tell me. Does anybody want to second it?
Second.
Okay. Anybody up for discussion? Okay. Can we vote on it? Okay. All those in favor? Great. Anyone opposed? Anyone abstaining? Awesome. So Eric, Micah, you and I can work on that and get it to Marianne early tomorrow morning. The other thing that I'm wondering from a process perspective, does it make sense that each of us also reach out to our individual board of directors for the organizations for which we're representing and ask them to also send a letter to the council meeting? I see shaking heads and thumbs, so I'm going to recommend that we do that. Matthew, can you get us the council date and item number for which we are commenting? I believe it will be part of the budget study session that starts on Tuesday, May 24th, but I will let you confirm that.
Yeah, and I'll give that to Eric, and Eric can push it out. Is that right?
Yes, we can do that.
That's the date.
Great.
And
It's also helpful if we can get like a little bit of canned language. You know how when we do these letter writing campaigns, someone's always composing the initial, we always add our own flavor, but someone has the meat of what we need to be saying, which we don't really know. We just add, we're just passing it on and getting people involved. So if someone can write a paragraph that just captured everything that Shannon said so we can send it out, then that would be awesome.
I think if you can get me that, I can push that out.
Yeah, we can try and do that as well. And
Matthew, why don't we connect on that tomorrow morning?
Yeah, because I know you're, again, excellent at those things. Yep, great. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the support as well.
Yep, we really appreciate it as well. We are now within 6 or 7 minutes here. So, Marianne, why don't you give us a Rec and Parks update?
Well, Rec and Parks will be meeting tomorrow night. We've met fairly regularly through the pandemic, trying our best to keep parks open, to keep them serviced, to deal with public safety issues. We are very concerned about field maintenance at the moment, since we consider it our mission to get as many people out using our public space as possible. And Shannon, thank you so much for taking the lead on that motion and your fine language. In fact, we might like you to start wording our motions. So we are dealing with recreation issues, as Micah knows, and also space issues. And I cannot tell you how happy all of Recreation and Parks is to have Micah's help and to have Eric back as our listening post and the person who gets us going and in the right direction. We look forward to things being open and running as much as possible. As John Tuttle said, we're expecting everybody to be back to their pre-pandemic membership and activity levels within the coming year. And hopefully we will have the facilities for them to use. Plus, if you haven't been by the field in the Civic Center that you people work so hard to get, it is spectacular, and I hope everybody's getting some use out of it. For those of you who have field players, we wouldn't have had it without the cooperation of all the organizations. So that's my personal thanks, because it was a project that was particularly dear to me, and marching out the troops was possibly my favorite thing to do for a long time. So thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you. Let's go. I'm sorry, Michael, you have a question?
Yeah, just Marianne, I just wondered if you could bring us up to speed on the phase one proposals that were approved by the city in February of 2020 for Memorial. Do you have any updates on that?
I don't, other than we have been told it's not happening in the foreseeable future. We don't like that answer on Rec and Parks, and so that is a constant topic of conversation to see how we can resurrect that or do the best that we can do with Memorial Park. There are lots of people who want to use it, and it is long, long overdue. So you'll be hearing from us, Michael. Thank you for asking.
Okay, we're going to move on because we are now within 3 or 4 minutes of ending the meeting. So let's go out of order. And do we have an update on the school district?
I don't believe they have any representation here, so currently.
Terrific.
So.
All right. So in very short order, are there any updates from the FSAC members?
I have one. Stephen Johnson, Santa Monica Rugby. We have a good piece of news. The Santa Monica adult men's team is going to be competing this weekend in the national championships for the USA in Atlanta. We won Southern California. We won the Pacific Regional by beating teams from Portland and San Francisco. We'll be playing Charlotte, North Carolina on Saturday, and either Denver or Buffalo on Sunday. And we've been there before, but it's been a really long time. But I happen to have been there when we did it last time, and I got 2 medals the last couple times we won it. But that was all the way back in 2006. So now, as president of the club, I'm really excited that in our big bounce back year, our women's team finished second in Southern California. Our men's team is advanced as far. And I would say that it's all because of the field resources of the city of Santa Monica. There have been rugby teams that tried to come back this season that folded, forfeited games. Some of them had to merge. We survived and prospered our men's, women's, and youth programs because we were able to have practice space, quality fields, good lights. And then also thanks to our fellow FSAC member groups, because we did have trouble with field space for games. And it was really the camaraderie of lacrosse and FC England and a few other groups that helped us get our full schedule played out when there was always a risk of maybe not being able to play a game. So the kind of cooperation and collaboration of this group, I think, is great. Soccer, lacrosse, rugby, the other field sports working together to make it work. Pony League also understanding that we're not going to kick your rugby ball onto your field in the middle of a baseball game. That one I can't even believe that we never kicked the ball over during 2 Pony League games. No ball went onto the baseball field, so that was
all right. Just start recruiting those pony kids over to rugby.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, if we had more time, I would have Shannon do a motion that you guys win the national championship, but you're gonna have to do that on your own because we're running short on time now. So
Sure.
with that, in our last minute, let's just go through the last agenda items here. No written communication, I assume, Eric?
No written communication.
Terrific. All right. So the last item on the agenda is future convenings. It actually says Rec and Parks, but we know it means EPSAC.
Yeah.
The next meeting we will schedule, I assume we'll try to do it sooner rather than later, right, Eric? And we will get notice out.
That is correct.
And then, there we go. Any other future agenda items that you think that we should have on for our next meeting?
A quick roundtable, if you have anything. So.
Yep, and feel free to when you get the email about the chair and vice chair, if you have other agenda items, send it on to Eric. And then with that, we just need a motion to adjourn. Anyone want to make a motion? Shannon, you're doing so good. Okay, go ahead, Randy.
I move to adjourn.
Good deal. Second. Excellent discussion. All right, we are adjourned. All right,
Nailed it.
and right at
Nailed the
8:30.
timing.
Nicely done.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you all.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.